All right, let's talk about a revolution. It's not happening on your screen exactly, but inside the very thing that's powering it. We're on the edge of a new era of what you could call infinite batteries. And trust me, it's going to change pretty much everything. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you actually walked out the door without doing that little mental check? Glancing at your phone's battery icon. I'm willing to bet, even right now, you've got one eye on this explainer and the other is kind of keeping track of that percentage, just hoping it'll last. It's funny, right? We have all this incredible tech, but it's all a slave to that tiny little green bar. And that really gets to the heart of the matter. For decades, the big tech race was all about speed. Faster chips, more processing power, but that's not the bottleneck anymore. The future, the real future of technology, doesn't hinge on how fast our devices can think. It hinges on how long they can stay on. So let's get into it. For years, we've been obsessed with faster processors and smarter AI, but we've slammed right into an invisible wall. And that wall? Well, it's the battery. Here's the best way to think about it. Our modern gadgets, they have the engine of a Ferrari. They're engineering marvels, but they're stuck with the gas tank of a motorcycle. It doesn't matter how powerful that engine is if you constantly have to stop and refuel. That's our problem right now. And this isn't just some abstract idea. It affects everything. Your smartphone could be way more powerful, but its performance is deliberately held back. It's throttled, just to keep it from burning itself out. Electric cars could charge a whole lot faster, but doing so would absolutely destroy the battery. And all our wearable tech, our watches and trackers, they're designed to just sip power, which seriously limits what they can do, all in the name of making it through a single day. But this is where the story gets really, really exciting. We are now finally entering a new phase, one that's all about smashing through that wall with next-generation power. So let's take a look at what that actually means. Okay, first things first, when we say infinite battery, let's be clear. We're not talking about some magic box with perpetual energy. No. It's about creating energy systems that are so efficient, so durable, and so ridiculously well-managed that you just stop thinking about them. It's about getting to a point where looking for an outlet is no longer a part of your daily routine. So, the first huge leap forward is the shift to solid-state batteries. Our current lithium-ion batteries, they use this volatile liquid to move energy around. Solid-state batteries, on the other hand, replace that liquid with a solid material. It sounds like a simple change, but it's a total game changer. They're way safer, no flammable liquid means the risk of fire practically disappears, and they can hold more energy and last for way, way longer. Then you have this other incredible area, batteries that can actually harvest energy from the world around us. We're talking about pulling in tiny bits of power from light, from heat, from your own motion, even from stray radio waves. Now, this stuff isn't going to charge your phone from 0 to 100 in minutes, but it could power a tiny sensor or a medical implant for years with absolutely zero human intervention. Okay, you ready to take a step into what really feels like science fiction? I promise you, what I'm about to show you is already real, and it's being used in some of the most advanced fields, both on this planet and way, way off it. 50 years. Just let that sink in. Imagine a battery, a tiny one, that could power a device for half a century without ever needing a recharge. That is the potential of miniature nuclear batteries. Now, before you panic, this is not coming to your next smartphone. But for missions where you need guaranteed energy for decades and failure is just not an option, this is the answer. These incredibly safe, long-lasting power sources are already out there powering satellites, deep space probes, and critical life-saving medical devices. So you might be wondering, how are we making these insane leaps so quickly? Well, a massive part of the answer is artificial intelligence. AI has basically become the superhero in this whole energy story. AI is speeding everything up in a few key ways. First, it's discovering totally new materials for better batteries. For example, AI recently helped discover a new material for solid-state batteries in just 80 hours. You know how long that would have taken humans? Maybe 2 decades. Second, it can simulate chemical reactions in seconds that would take years to test in a lab. And third, it's getting crazy good at predicting how batteries wear down over time. There's something kind of poetic about it, right? The very same AI that needs these enormous amounts of energy to run is now the key that's unlocking the very energy sources it will need to power its own future. It's a fascinating loop. Okay, so let's bring this all back down to earth. What does this future actually look like for you and me? What happens to our daily lives when the battery just isn't a problem anymore? Well, for one thing, that whole cycle of upgrading your phone every year or two just because the battery is shot, that's over. Your devices will just last. And range anxiety for electric cars? Poof, gone. EVs become the obvious, more practical choice. They'll charge faster, and the batteries will last longer, making them better than gas cars in basically every single way. And you know the whole promise of the Internet of Things, this idea of billions of connected devices? Well, it finally starts to make sense. A smart city can't work if you have to pay someone to change the batteries in a million different sensors. With this new tech, you don't.
So, the big question, right? When does this future actually get here? And the surprising answer is, it's kind of already started. The rollout is happening right now, just quietly.
Of course, it's not going to be a simple flip of a switch. There are still some major hurdles to get over. You've got the cost of these new materials, the massive challenge of scaling up to industrial production, and let's be honest, all the existing companies that make a lot of money from our current cycle of disposable tech. So we're seeing it happen in stages. First, it's in those specialized fields like space and medicine. Next, you'll start to see it pop up in really premium, high-end consumer products. And then finally, it'll hit the mass market and become the new normal. This whole change, this revolution, it isn't going to arrive with some big, flashy press conference. It's going to be a quiet, gradual shift. It'll be that weird moment when you suddenly realize you haven't even thought about a charger in days, or maybe even weeks. And once that happens, you'll never go back. At the end of the day, this new era of batteries isn't just about better technology. It's about freedom. The freedom to use our devices without anxiety, to trust them, and to finally stop being hostages to the power outlet. Because ultimately, the true sign of powerful technology is when you don't even notice it's there.